Corn and soybeans going down this week and stronger wheat exports. And yet, a South American planting progress. Right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, we had a negative reaction on the markets on Friday, and people are still talking about lower yields when it comes to corn and soybeans. So, what's your take on this?
Well, this week was really, we had the enthusiasm early in the week about our weekly shipments and things of that nature. We bumped up to some important resistance levels there in corn and soybeans, and it kind of went sideways. And as a week, we were looking at a very dry week most of the week, nothing happening here in the eastern corn belt. There were shower activities, western Iowa and into the plains and that. But in general, there was I think some optimism. Maybe we get a breakout above the recent resistance here in the soybeans and corn, but it in general didn't happen. Weekly export sales uh, were solid, but nothing spectacular in that. And then the markets uh, were trying to be optimistic, I think, but we're still very cautious about what could happen on the conversation between Z and uh, President Trump on Friday. And so basically, the mixed kind of reports coming out, depending which side you wanted to listen to here as to what actually transpired. Uh, President Trump loves to be enthusiastic and optimistic, and he talked about lots of things happening and a good sign about things. Yet Z was not jumping on board that any deal had been uh, finalized on TikTok. That really was the main uh, discussion because I think that's the one that really needs to get behind us here, and that the U.S. Has already stated that they want it sold to a different person. It seems like uh, Ellison is the potential buyer in the U.S. that would be the taking over TikTok, and that China has not. I'm not sure that they approve that guy or approve anybody at this point. So from there, and their response was that we've had good discussions, but nothing had been settled, and it could be out until mid to late October here when they get together in South Korea for some type of event from both sides. So the unfortunate thing is, I think we really do need to get this TikTok issue finalized and behind us so we can end up moving on to U.S. exports ideas. China has continued to be very slow and hasn't bought any new crop, I should say, U.S. soybeans and that. And even their corn purchases have been modest, but in general, we've had a very strong early year progress in corn sales at this point from other places. So at this point, the markets slipped away there mid to late session on Friday, right back down towards the bottom right side of the range here that we've had in beans for the last 2 or 3, 4 weeks here at this point. And the other thing probably added to the weakness here, this forecasted rains being in the eastern corn belt. How dynamic it will be, how strong will they be, will be important at this point. Last year we had a very dry September, October, and yields came down dramatically. And so uh, we definitely need more than a quarter or half an inch that's being projected here at this point. But that cloudbursts happen on many places here in the world of weather, and we'll see what the weather side of things here will be a big factor going forward.
Yes, when it comes to wheat, there were the official data, but this was kind of anticipated the information that several countries in Asia were purchasing more wheat from the US.
Yes, yes, yeah. The wheat side of things has been interesting. Uh, Subtly here, the Black Sea has not been as aggressive. I'm not sure that Ukraine really has any really strong export potential this year. Their yields were hurt by the crop, and then Russia has been interesting and somewhat on the where they usually ship their wheat from in the east side of eastern side, I should say, of the Black Sea. They haven't done as aggressive a part there. And interestingly enough, they've recently put on a export tariff, and so that also adds to the cost of taking things there. And overall, their ideas are that this year's wheat crop in Russia is maybe 3 or 4 million metric tons, up closer to 84, 85 million metric tons, and that, but they're out shipping it. So the world is really kind of dipping in here, looking at the U.S. here in the short term. Uh, Even the the European scenario at this point. Uh, Kind of a mixed bag on that. The eastern parts of EU are definitely been dinged by the same dryness. The west, supposedly, France's crop is not too bad, and that. And there was an update this week that the Australians and the Canadian kind of numbers were also up, but we've been shipping a huge amount. This is the second highest uh, first quarter exports since 5 years ago. So the 264 million that we've had on exports there, very positive in that. And but interestingly enough, our price of wheat hasn't really went along with the stronger demand because everyone's looking at the world numbers and saying, oh, that weren't adequate and all that kind of stuff. So it's always a tricky world. Depends on what things are looking at. If you're looking at it from the U.S. perspective and how our exports are going, that's good. But overall, we still have more than adequate supplies. And at this point, we seasonally also tend to have a little bit of a strength that's come in here late summer and that maybe even carrying into November. But we'll see what happens with it right now. Right at this point, we're still quite concerned about how big a crop we're going to have in the U.S. on corn and soybeans.
Now, also there is the side of South America when it comes to the crop that is being planted. Right now, there is torrential rains in Argentina, and I think the market is going to be looking a lot at what happens in South America starting this month.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, September is a big South American. It sets the kind of tone for timing on things. Uh, yeah, there's been some southern parts of Brazil, Rio Grande do Sul, that's got rain along with the rains we've had in Argentina, and that to some extent, they only make corn and soybeans only one crops down there in Rio Grande, so it's not delaying that. But the Mato Grosso, Goiás, the northern area is still on the dry side. Not surprising. Many times over the last 4 or 5 years, we really didn't get started on beans in the plantings in the north until uh, first half of October, and that used to be very concerning to the markets when it was delayed, but we they still had some pretty good yields out of that. So that will be watched very, very closely, no doubt about it. From there, the I think it might have been actually the early part of the week before that Conab ended up increase in its crop sizes on corn and soybeans for last year, up to 172, 173 versus the 169 that's been carried out there. And that I think it has to do with the amount of exports that got out of there that kind of matches it. On the corn side, they're in the 132, 135 zone. The optimism is that things will move higher here in the coming year. One twist of it is that Well, because of the uh, China coming in and uh, buying various things in that and the price points. People in Argentina are real optimistic, and maybe it's because of the recent rains out there about expanding their corn production up closer to 60 million versus the 50 million we had recently, which would take down the soybean plantings. It's a long ways for that thing to finalize, but it's an interesting twist. Uh, Unfortunately, the U.S. has had the same approach, chasing after something that's high now, and it really buried our corn prices. And we have such a big uh, crop size this year being projected because we expanded our planting area, significantly. I think we did ultimately here by what's going on. We're probably closer to, I think a total plantings here of somewhere around 6.5 to 7.5 million acres. That's creates a lot of extra bushels.
Yeah, so what do you think is going to happen next week?
Well, in the coming week, uh, we're going to be, of course, staring at what kind of results we're getting out of the field on things here. Uh, I think the market is going to be watching what might be happening internationally, of course, and the jockeying we're seeing back and forth here. To some extent, the Black Sea, I think, is going to get a little more of attention here, accordingly, here at this point. The Overall, the markets right now, at least, uh, kind of a tender spot here in the short term here as we stare out the window, uh, uh, looking around both the world and the U.S. at this point. Uh, the stocks, excuse me, the winter wheat production number, by the way, uh, uh, looking at there's tradition of that particular number at this point uh, isn't for big changes in their final number, which will be issued on the small grains report and that. But I think that some of the dryness we've had will impact Montana and some of the winter wheat numbers. I think that might dip on that number, 7 or 8 million. Then we have some minor adjustments in white wheat in the Northwest too. Uh, and that with the adjustments going on there. Same thing on some spring wheat numbers. Overall, I'm kind of looking for about a 20 million decline, which is not a big number. It's not traditionally a big number. Changes on the final winter wheat number. So that'll be a focus as we get towards the end of the month. From there, uh, interestingly enough, with the strong exports that we've had this last quarter, as we sell wheat, other people seem to have got a snag going on in their sales, and that uh, we started out with a hefty uh, so-called Indian or beginning stocks for this year. We took the 20 million off of production and that, and then ultimately here we'll probably end up only seeing our wheat stocks maybe rise by only 20 to 25 million over last year, which is, I'd have to say, a surprise, I think, to many people at this point, just because of the situation that's going on there. At this point, the amount of rains that we have them this weekend and that will be positive from the point of view of stabilizing the uh, some of the crop sizes and that. Uh, but at the same time, it also delay some harvesting pressure too. So it's kind of a mixed bag when you get rain at harvest time, or at least in the early harvest. Right now, we're getting very close, and I guess on my trip this week down to see relatives in Louisville, Kentucky, I'm going to also kind of observe what how the crops look like. I've heard that couple people that said it's dead. In essence, it's It's yellowed up and it's ready for harvest. But at this point, uh, the crop size is the, the twist of this thing is that we had a dry winter and spring last year. We had a little rain in the summer, late June through July, maybe early August in some cases in the east, and then it's been dry again. To some extent, I, along with the disease issues we had with the humidity and things like that, this crop has really got beat up. So it's going to be watched very closely on what kind of yields are coming out of the field. We'll probably not get a big harvesting weekend with the rain that is around, or excuse me, next week, I should say, in harvesting, but we will have some updates on things as we go forward and that. And then we'll be looking at the corn and soybean stocks reports on our next update next weekend.
All right, thank you very much.
You bet. Take care. Have a nice weekend, and I'll have stories from the road next week.